Current Minister of Communications, Dr. Tijani brings a wealth of experience and visionary perspective to the realm of digital transformation and innovation. His career is a testament to the power of technology as a catalyst for socio-economic development. With a background that seamlessly blends entrepreneurial success with academic rigor, Dr. Tijani is the co-founder and the CEO of Co-Creation Hub, otherwise known as CC Hub, one of Africa's leading tech innovation centers. Dr. Tijani's commitment to education is evident through his efforts to bridge the digital divide. His initiatives emphasize the importance of accessible technology in empowering communities and nurturing the next generation of innovators. His leadership has been instrumental in shaping policies that promote connectivity, digital literacy, and inclusive growth across several industries, including agriculture. Beyond his professional achievements, he is a passionate advocate for sustainable development. He leverages his platform to address global challenges, championing the use of technology to drive positive social change. His work has earned him recognition on the international stage, where he continues to inspire and lead conversations around innovation, technology, and development. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Bosun Tijani, a true leader in communications and innovation, as he shares his insights and vision for a connected future. It's an honor to have you with us, Honorable Minister.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. His Excellency Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, DSFR, GCFR, and the chairman of the occasion. His Excellency, the Honorable Minister, Lagos State Ministry of Agriculture, Ms. Abisola Olusoya. All other senior government officials here today, the passionate people of the agriculture sector in Nigeria, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon once again. I find it extremely exciting to be here with you today for many reasons, but I'll speak to just three of those reasons. Of course, one is the fact that I'm part of a government that is extremely motivated to help address the food security, insecurity challenge that we face in the country. And as you've seen, the president has made it clear since the beginning of this administration that as a country, we must cultivate 500,000 hectares of land. And that, in a way, is a challenge for me as the Minister of Communications, Innovation, and Digital Economy. Because we all understand that you can't truly diversify any economy without prioritizing the use of technology, particularly digital technologies. The second reason why I'm excited to be here today was about the time when I was appointed. We also what happened to the price of food generally across the world, including Nigeria. And because I tend to be a little on the crazy side, I decided I was going to take my exit pay from CC Hub and put it into a farm. So I actually have a farm which is 250 hectares somewhere in Ogun State. And we're just planting this week. So we've spent the last few months clearing, plowing, and harrowing as well. So I kind of feel like I'm amongst colleagues and friends here to discuss agriculture. But I think the third reason why I'm excited about being here, of course, is that looking at the room, seeing a lot of young people, a lot of technologies in the room, passionate about helping to address the food security challenge that we face globally, and more importantly, Nigeria, is a sort of reassurance that we're getting it right, and that the people that should come together to truly help fix these issues are passionate about it. And this is why I've chosen to, in the introduction, I think she mentioned that I can be a bit academic. because of course I have a PhD in innovation systems, and I've been looking at the innovation ecosystem, particularly digital innovation ecosystem for agriculture over the years, even before being appointed. And two things are important for us to take into consideration. Of course, the food security challenge that we face globally is a big problem. But another point, which is a problem but an opportunity as well, is the demography of our population on the African continent, where about 60% of our people are under the age of 30 across the African continent. In Nigeria in particular, that number is 70% of our people are under the age of 25, which means our population will continue to grow. In a way, we must find ways to continue to fit them. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for us as a nation to actually leverage agriculture in strengthening our economy. Because not only do we need to produce the food to feed this population locally, but we have the workforce and the manpower to help us feed the world as well. And the numbers, the statistics on the screen speaks to this reality, where you start to see the undernourishment challenge that we face and chronic hunger globally. About 16% of the global population are currently suffering from this. You can also see that world hunger rose by 2021 to about 9.8%. And some of it is attributed, of course, to undernourishment, which rose from 8% to 9.3%. These are numbers from UNICEF. But when you move forward to what we've always talked about, I don't know if you can see the screen properly, but the graph here is trying to speak to a reality, which is the contribution of the agriculture sector to GDP across the world. So it's about 4% of global nominal gross domestic product can be attributed to agriculture. But this is very special in Africa because the statistic that I use for this presentation, which is quite dated, from about 2010, you can see it's about 15% to the continent. Agriculture contributes about 15% to the GDP on the continent. And you can see the map as well. So it's actually an important sector for us, as you all know, extremely important. You can see the jump for Africa. The rest of the world is pretty way lower than Africa. Then my next slide speaks to two interesting points. One is the average employment in agriculture by continent. Again, you can see the really tall one is Africa. Americas, you can see, which is the one that follows, you can see how low it is. But the exciting thing is when you move to the pie chart on the side, where you see the average agricultural land by continent between 1990 and 2019, you start to see something really exciting there. The size of land being cultivated in the Americas, when you compare it to Africa, is quite similar. But the Americas employ way less people in agriculture than Africa. That's something we should talk about later in my subsequent slide. So when I was offered the job as the Minister of Communications, Innovation, and Digital Economy, and of course being aware that the role of government anywhere in the world is a constant conversation on how you drive up your GDP. That's what government worries about, of course, including so many other things around security and much more. But GDP is a major, major challenge and is linked to nearly everything else in any economy. So I downloaded numbers and statistics from the CBN for about 20 to 35 years or so. And we're looking at the components of how we calculate our GDP in Nigeria. Of course, our GDP is largely classified into three sectors broadly, which is what we call industry, where you also find things like manufacturing and the likes. The second one is agriculture, and the third one, of course, is services. I broke down the contribution of each of these sectors to the Nigerian GDP over the years. And depending on what you're seeing on the screen, You can see that industry, of course, has been dropping over the years. Services has been growing for obvious reasons, because this is where you also find the ICT sector and so many other exciting things we've been doing in entertainment, Nollywood, for instance. But you can see agriculture has been quite flat over the years. And this is a sector that is meant to be a major sector that contributes to our economy. So I went further and I looked at the components of agriculture when we calculate GDP. So what are the components of agriculture? How do we tabulate and calculate the contribution of agriculture? Of course, this is further broken down into 4 key areas. One is crop production, livestock, forestry, but also fishing as well. Then we looked at the numbers. We created a model to be able to help us understand the growth of these 4 areas. Of course, we found that relatively high in terms of contribution is crop production. But nothing was on the moderate side. The other 3 was actually relatively flat. So over the years, we've not been able to raise the level of production or productivity in livestock, forestry, and fishing over the years. And remember, these are important elements of agriculture. They're important elements of food as well that we eat. And Nigeria has competitive advantage in all of these areas. This is why we calculate them and we take them into consideration. Then I started asking pertinent questions. For those who may have economics background, when you talk about growth, of course, you need to start saying, what can we do to truly help see growth in these areas? And the economics in the room, or the economics teachers will tell you, you have 2 clear options. One option is that you increase the number of inputs that you put into your production process. So you get more people into production process. Perhaps in farming, you increase the number of land that you use. But I think one wisdom that has been with us, economics, for years is the Cobb-Douglas production function. That if you give the same piece of land to 2 farmers, and you get one to use the traditional way of cultivating that land, and you get another one to learn from Baba and use drones, sensor, and precision agriculture, that we all know what's going to happen. One will be a lot more productive than the other. And this has been the story. Hence, the introduction of technological innovation in how you truly raise GDP. If you want to diversify any economy, if we want to raise the level of contribution of agriculture to the GDP of Nigeria, then we have to be thinking about technological innovation. So this is not new. So a conference of this sort, a summit of this sort, it's not really been built based on the excitement that technology is now here with us and we have to use it. It's the traditional way that nations have been able to leapfrog. And if you're unsure, I'll take you to my next slide, which, if you can see that graph again, here we start to talk about total factor productivity. Again, for the economics in the room, total factor productivity is how you explain the portion of your produce output that is not linked to your traditional form of production. So the portion of your output that is linked to innovation, that is linked to technology. And of course, what this graph is showing us is that in the US, over the years, the land that is being cultivated for agriculture is not been increasing. It's actually been decreasing over the years in the US. The amount of people who work in agriculture in the US has been going down as well. But guess what? The output has been rising significantly. And when you calculate the total factor production for agriculture in the US, you actually find that growing as well. So US as a nation is able to continue to stay productive. To a large extent, they still import significantly in agriculture because technology is being added to. So when we talk about the need to feed ourselves on the continent, when we talk about the need for us to raise the level of production in agriculture, to enhance productivity, we need to understand that a summit of this nature is truly the only way forward. I was having a side chat with Baba on the importance of smallholder farmers. Whilst I'm a very big advocate of smallholder farmers, I also see the need for us to actually prioritize large-scale farms that can allow us to use technology efficiently. When I was looking at my farm and we were talking about herbicides and we were talking about fertilization, and we stumbled on AgriSat T40, I was talking to someone on my table as well. To spray the farm, which is 250 hectares of farm, I can get it done in about a day and a half. The drone will do about 50 acres in 1 hour. Imagine if I was going to go through the manual way of doing that. Or imagine if my farm is just 2 hectares. It's going to be a waste of technology. So we need to balance the need to build a robust ecosystem with the application of technology to actually help us solve the problems that we currently face on the continent. And we've started seeing a set of fantastic innovation in this space. You know, when we were looking at data on this, luckily I did some research for the EU, I think about 2 years ago on this topic before becoming a minister. And of course, we found on the African continent some trend that was already emerging in terms of how technology was being used. I decided to put just a few of the companies on this slide. Of course, the most popular one was crowdfunding. I think Nigeria played a major role in actually mainstreaming crowdfunding in agriculture. It's a concept that is still evolving. We've learned a lot from it. It's worked in some cases. It's had its own challenges, but we've learned from it significantly. Precision agriculture is also another area that has been growing over the years. Agroecology is coming in. Advisory and information services, I think this has been with us for a long time in terms of the use of technology. But the one I would like to focus on, if you can see my slide, is actually precision agriculture. And I think luckily for us, we have the head of NIGECOMSAT, the satellite company, the Nigerian satellite company, also in the room today. And of course, I think we can't talk about NIGECOMSAT without giving a round of applause to Baba, because the only satellite in West Africa was actually launched by him when he was the president of the country. And the reason why I think we need to talk about precision agriculture is that there's immense opportunity for us to actually start to change efficiency, raise the level of technical efficiency, start to raise the output that we generate in agriculture through precision agriculture. Precision farming offers the opportunity to use models to be able to farm better. We can start to test with things like GIS and RS. Sensors, for instance, provide significant opportunity on my farm. I'm paying NIGECOMSAT to actually build out a mesh network on the entire farm. I'm paying them. They're not doing it for free because I'm the minister. They're putting a mesh network on the entire farm, and they're also burying sensors around the farm as well. And these sensors will allow us to be able to do things like crop management, particularly around protection, around the nutrients of the soil, to be able to test and be sure that the crop on the land actually has the right water. And also under precision agriculture, some of the other possibilities, which I'm not considering on my farm, is also its use for animal protection, but also animal monitoring as well. Precision agriculture, as we all know, can support with plant yield enhancement. And of course, beyond plant use enhancement, there's quite a number of other opportunities for precision agriculture that we can also start to see. Things around crop mapping, soil mapping, growth monitoring for plants, and endless opportunities that we have to be able to take advantage of this new set of technologies. As a minister, with a mandate to ensure that we can use technology to contribute to the development of the Nigerian economy, and understanding that my president and government is extremely passionate about the growth of agriculture in the country, we started to look at the convergence of digital innovation and digital innovation ecosystem in agriculture on the continent, not just in Nigeria. And broadly, we found 3 areas that has been emerging. One is what we call the actors and the networks. driving this innovation. We saw a lot of opportunities around specific technologies and knowledge that are driving these innovations, but also in institutions as well. And by institutions here, we're referring to policies, in some cases, lack of it, regulations, but also norms as well. If I break that down for you, I don't know if you can see my screen if it's big enough, but I'll read out some of it. So we found that smallholder farmers, to a large extent in some areas, are beginning to consider innovative approaches, but also use of technologies. We've seen many aggregators actually leading the introduction of innovation within the agricultural space. I think a number of them have been mentioned earlier. Extension workers on the continent are beginning to encourage innovative application. Fintech startups, most of those tied to crowdfunding platforms. Tech investors, a number of the people in the room today are technology companies, and their investors are also driving the changes that we're seeing. Space and satellite companies are beginning to also consider and also participate in an innovative program. I remember before leaving CC Hub, we did a program with Airbus, and I think some of the beneficiaries are in the room today as well, which was actually focused on using satellite technology to support the agriculture space. So there's a ton of stakeholders and actors, networks that are driving this growth. But on the other side as well, you can see specific technologies that are helping us to drive the growth that we're seeing today. Financial technology, for instance, the ability to be able to pay people remotely. Mobile telephony and communications technologies also contributing significantly to the growth we're seeing in this space. I talked earlier about satellite and space technologies, big data. The fact that we can now process a lot more data and we can make sense out of it, from affordable computing, remote sensing as well is contributing to the growth that we're seeing in the space. Some elements of Internet of Things, because we can now connect things to things, but also things to people. We're beginning to see early stages of the use of artificial intelligence as well to drive this innovation. And on the policy side, a number of policies have been responsible for the growth that we've seen. For instance, the fact that we've had weak policies around crowdfunding actually led to the crowdfunding platform's ability to be able to innovate. So sometimes lack of policy is also an opportunity for innovation. Also, things like crowdfunding became quite big in agriculture because of the perception of the newness of this concept. The growth and investment in space and satellite technologies, because we now have more technologies covering a lot of African countries, imply that we can collect data much more seamlessly, and innovation can also happen with those data sets as well. Advancement in communications protocols. So a lot of the communication protocols required for IoT, because we're seeing a lot more advancement in them, is also why we see this innovation as well. But I think liberalization of the regulations of space and satellite technology is also the kind of policies that we see that needs to happen. So what are we doing as government to support this drive? I think this is probably what you want to hear from me. So what we did was to leverage what we already know about the digital innovation ecosystem that is growing. So what I'm going to speak to today is not what the government is doing in the agriculture sector, but what we're doing within the digital economy space to actually ensure that digital technologies and innovation can help drive the growth we need to see in agriculture. We came up with a few lists. Of course, we've not implemented all of them. I've been in office just for 9 months, but we started working on this. So we broke them down into 3 specific areas. One is the need for us to enhance know-how and technology application in agriculture. The second one is the need for us to build network and relationships that can facilitate both the transfer of existing knowledge, the development of new knowledge, but also the application of this knowledge as well. And the last one, of course, is policy frameworks and developments that can help. Under know-how and technology application, some of the things we've done as government, and I did this the first month of being appointed, is to facilitate collaborative research activities, particularly around technologies that we know can help improve and increase productivity in agriculture. So we started a program that is focused specifically on artificial intelligence. And we made it innovations that we fund must focus on agriculture. Today, we funded 40 of those innovations. We funded 40 of them. And the funding was quite basic. We gave them 5 million naira each to test. We only picked existing solutions, but we wanted them to pilot and test. So that's something we've started. The other thing we believe we should do is to create thematic acceleration programs for startups who can also start to build. And again, when we created this program, we specifically focused this program on agriculture. So we said we were looking for 10 demonstration projects for technology in agriculture, 10. And we announced those 10, I think, sometimes in January. We funded 10 of them. And what we did was to get them to pilot their solution on large farms. And we gave them 10 million naira each to be able to do that pilot as well. The other things we believe we should be seeing under know-how is the need to enable knowledge and technology transfer, particularly on space and satellite technologies, because we believe these are a set of technologies that will play a major role in the space. We'd also like to sponsor talent development programs for early stage researchers that are focused on agriculture technology as well. NIDDA was already doing this. NIDDA was already working with a number of academic institutions in the country, focusing on supporting those who have studied agriculture to actually go out there and test out some of the things they've learned on real farms as well. In terms of building network and relationships, we thought of 4 things that we could do, and we believe that we've implemented one of them as part of the program, 2 programs that I mentioned earlier. One is that we want to facilitate and sponsor exchange programs, particularly between companies and research institutions, because we see that there's so many research around agriculture, agricultural technology that is ongoing, either within or outside of the country, that we can mainstream by getting them into proper farms. We would like to fund demonstration projects also that involves agriculture technology under building network and relationships. And like I said, we've done this. We'd like to be able to co-invest in agricultural technology startups. For those who are following, the government has been able to launch a program called the iDice, which is meant to invest startups in the country. And we have about $650 million to go into that investment. And we believe that a significant number of those startups will come from the agri-tech space as well. In addition to this, we want to provide funding for network and operations of agri-tech accelerators, but also incubators across the country as well. The last frame, in terms of what we believe we should be doing, is to work on policy framework, but also support mainstreaming of technology in agriculture. And the first thing we're doing there is to assist in creating regulatory sandboxes for technology in agriculture. For those who are in agriculture, you probably know that we still have some challenges with the use of drones in Nigeria in terms of the law. And one of the things we're doing is to now working with the NSA to ensure that we can have a sandbox in place that will allow anyone with any innovative ideas around the use of drones, particularly in agriculture, to be able to test without going through the approval and the formal licensing process in the country. And we believe once we can do this, we'll start to see more innovation within this space. We'd like to facilitate capacity programs for public officials and technology efficiency in agriculture. Again, as much as agriculture is not my responsibility as a minister, we believe that we have to work with the right agencies for them to understand the power of technology in agriculture. Under this framing as well, we're providing funding for think tanks and academics on policies and regulations. We've identified sectors. Our goal as a ministry is to fund at least 5 parallel think tanks that can also do policy research on everything that we do, so that their research can inform the policy that we come up with as a ministry as well. And last but not the least is to provide support for harmonization of agricultural policies as it relates to technology under the Single Market Agreement, which is AFCFTA. As you can see, though our mandate is digital economy, we have a strong understanding that the digital economy can help to also strengthen the agricultural sector in Nigeria. We believe that also by investing in the digital backbone of this country, that our critical sectors can begin to perform optimally. And by performing, these sectors can help to strengthen our economy. And this is the mandate of the Ministry of Communications, Innovation, and Digital Economy. And I hope some of you will be beneficiaries of our programs and that you will indeed find ways to partner with us to help ensure that agriculture becomes a truly great sector for Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Please kindly stay on stage. It's really great to hear the intersection of the digital economy with agriculture, and we thank you so much for your wonderful remarks. I'd like to call on His Excellency Chief Olusegun Obasanjo to join you on stage. And I'd also like to recognize Ms. Abisola Olusanya, who's the Honorable Commissioner of Lagos State Ministry of Agriculture, representing the Governor of Lagos State as well. Please kindly stand, ma'am, so we can acknowledge you, and let's put our hands together for her. Kindly join us on stage as well as we take the picture with the Honorable Minister. You may go over there. Really some wonderful remarks. I think not a lot of us think about the intersection of digital economy and agriculture. One would have thought that perhaps you were the Minister of Agriculture as you were speaking. So definitely some great points there. Please kindly make your way to the center of the stage to take your picture. And also organizers of the event, please kindly join us on stage. It's protocol, we have to take pictures. Sorry about that. So as you can see, the tea break has been brought to your tables. So we can just move swiftly along the agenda. If you need to stand up to stretch a little bit, I invite you to stand up a bit, stretch, because you've been sitting down for the better part of the day. I hope that you're enjoying the sessions as they're ongoing. And we have much more in store for you as the day continues. Thank you very much. Please let's clap as they exit the stage. Thank you all very much for being with us. Honorable Minister, could you stay on the stage? We're going to, sorry, that's my bad. We have time for the Honorable Minister, preferably a woman and a man. So I could see some women put their hands up. So you could please contribute to the conversation. All right, ushers, could you please go to the gentleman there in the white? And could we please have some women as well, perhaps ask a question? Perhaps we'll get some motivation after we hear the first question. So please go ahead and please make your questions succinct. Let us know what your name is, and please be direct about your question. Not too much context. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thanks for the awesome presentation, the Honorable Minister. I'm the co-founder of RIPE, and at RIPE, we are kind of building a solution that will help improve the value of produce, especially fresh produce in Nigeria, optimize their value and also preserve them so that when they are being taken from the farm, products like plantains and tomatoes, they can get to the final users and still maintain their freshness and quality and be available for a longer period of time that we currently have. You said a lot of things about supporting tech products in the agricultural value chain through your ministry. And you didn't mention anything about solutions that are involved in preserving produce and also optimizing them. Because when we talk about agriculture, a lot of the times we like to talk about farming, and it doesn't end there. Tomatoes, for instance, we lose a bigger portion of the tomatoes we produce in Nigeria. So how will your ministry help to support solutions that optimize and preserve the produce within the value chain? Thank you.
That's an interesting question. So when I leave this place, I'll be doing some site visits on the NIPOST. You all know NIPOST, and I'm sure everybody, you have something to say about NIPOST. And one of the places I'm going is actually in Abeokuta. So there's a NIPOST workshop in Abeokuta. Because I'm from the innovation space, we build in the open, so I'll share this concept openly. And what we're looking to do is we have what we call NIPOST workshop in strategic locations across the country. And we're looking to test out a model where we can convert those workshops into food hubs. And by food hubs, I'll explain. So NIPOST is looking to build out these warehouses in strategic locations across the country that will hopefully help farmers, but we're not going to run this bit. We're looking for technology companies and technology startups, aggregators that are already working with farmers that will be able to use these warehouses where the farmers can bring their produce to those warehouses. And these warehouses would obviously be operated with a lot of technology in them to preserve the produce, but also not just preserve the produce. NIPOST is building out that last mile delivery chain from those warehouses, those workshops, to specific locations across the country. So for instance, we're hoping to pilot this in Abeokuta, where the workshop in Abeokuta will become a food hub. And as a food hub, we will work with a number of technology companies. There will be the companies who produce IoT solutions that will manage the temperature and the condition of the warehouse. There will be the companies also, the IoT companies will also work with NIPOST on the logistics bit to be able to track the condition of the food whilst they are being moved. We're hoping to work with the aggregators or maybe the likes of Price Pally, who will actually take the food, they will buy the food, pay the farmers. All the farmers will need to do is to drop it at the NIPOST workshop, which we're going to change the name to Food Hub. And NIPOST will be responsible for seamlessly moving the food from those food hubs to wherever the partner organization wants us to take the food within the country. This is a model that we're looking to test. We're not sure if it's going to work, but you can clap. So if there are people in the room with ideas on how we can optimize it, because we know food crisis is there, so smallholder farmers can't sell their food seamlessly. We're hoping perhaps NIPOST can disrupt, and don't quote me in public, NIPOST can disrupt, is it my 2 or my 12? I always mix them up, right? That's the hope, that instead of the food going to those markets, that we can seamlessly help the aggregators, the farmers, to package them neatly, but also transport them in record time to key markets like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, where these things are needed en masse. And once we do that, a lot of what you're talking about is not going to be done by NIPOST. NIPOST's role in that entire value chain will be logistics and the warehouse itself, because these are government properties that exist, so we're not selling the properties. We'll repurpose them because they're not being used for anything at the minute. And also, NIPOST will then invest in that logistics system solely for agriculture as a pilot. And hopefully when we do that, we can help address some of the things that you've mentioned. Thank you. If anyone works in the space and you'd like to talk about this concept, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer and for that question. We have time for one more question. Over here, Mr. Eze from Union Bank. I was hoping that we would have a question from a woman, but no such luck today. This will be the last question, and if you have any further questions, I'm sure you can meet the minister after this. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. In line with what you've said, first of all, how do we reach out for those that are interested in participating from the finance sector? That's one. Then secondly, I wanted to ask, I am aware that Nigeria had a lot of storage facility that was privatized or sold to public and most of these places are still dormant and comatose, not in use. Now, this second effort you're talking about is also going to involve a lot of money. Meanwhile, you have assets that were given to people, and some of those assets are actually not in use. And I wouldn't know anything about the conditions of those privatizations. Don't you think your this effort is going to be, involved in when you have assets that can actually be deployed and that were strategically located in areas like what when Kola talked about access to rural road. Most of these facilities were in those areas to make sure that evacuation and storage were within the short time to also allow for optimal use.
I think the second leg of your question, actually, you're buttressing the concept I spoke about earlier. I think one of the things that our forefathers did well for us was to invest heavily into NIPOS. So NIPOS has strategic locations, properties all over the country. Many people have been asking the question upon my appointment, what have we been doing on NIPOS? Actually, the first task that the president graciously did for us was to, a part of NIPOS was already unbundled before we came into government. It was already unbundled. You have the NIPOS properties, logistics, and all of those things, which meant when we came in, a lot of the innovative ideas that we had on how to reimagine NIPOS, we couldn't work on them. So we had to work with the State House to bring those entities back. And just about 4 weeks ago was when the president finally signed for them to be back fully in the hands of the government. So a lot of the properties you're talking about, the workshop in Abeokuta that I mentioned, belongs to the government. That's a low-hanging fruit. So we don't have to pay for it. We're going to repurpose that building for what I've just described. And we have workshops, what we call workshops in NIPOS. They're very special buildings. I think we have about 8 or 9 of them across the country. But bear in mind, we have over 5,000 NIPOS facilities. So beyond workshops, we have so many other special buildings as well. We have something really large in Ijora. And that's what we're hoping we can do with these buildings, that we can start to repurpose them for the agriculture sector, but not just agriculture sector, so many other sectors that can benefit from physical spaces as well. In terms of